You are watching the special Q&A for our magnetic supporters, our Kickstarter backers, the whole reason that we were able to make this film. So about a month ago, we let you guys watch the film, and now we have some questions to answer. And we are currently on the set of our newest film that we just started production on called Blood of the Tribbles.
So we thought we'd take a break from filming that and answer some of your questions about magnetic. So let's take it away.
Yes, so Michael from Louisville asked, is it possible to add subtitles to the video?
This is a very good question. At some point, when the movie comes out or as we progress a little further along, there will be a captioned version of it. We haven't been able to complete that yet, but we promise that someday that will exist. And luckily, you can watch the movie and there's like
very little
dialogue. So it's better if you can follow along, and we do want to make it accessible to everybody, so we will someday make that happen. But even if you take a look at it now, you can probably see most of what's going on with it. And at some point soon, if you just give us a little leeway and patience for our inability to get it ready for everybody at this point, we'll have it soon.
I do want to say, as far as the rewards and stuff, we're just waiting for Magnetic to kind of finish up its festival cycle, and then hopefully we'll be getting the rewards out to you very soon, probably the end of the fall.
Yeah, we've got a t-shirt design, and we've got the soundtrack ready, and all kinds of stuff. So it'll all be in your hands very, very soon. We just have to wait through a little bit more of our festival run before we can make that happen. So it's great.
It's coming.
Okay, so now we have Phil White.
Do you want to go?
I think
answer the questions not from Phil White first?
I should make an important statement. So Phil asked a lot of questions about the science, and rather than answer all the science questions, he just said, okay, a coronal magnetic ejection wouldn't quite look like that, and the sun wouldn't look like that, and other things along those lines. And he is correct. Phil White is correct.
We didn't go to space.
We did
sorry.
not. That's not filmed in space.
I would love to go to space and film.
And it turns out that looking at actual solar events without representing them in some kind of dramatic film form makes for a very boring and not fun to watch movie. So we ignored science. And we have things like a smoking fireball flying through space, a visible ejection from the sun, Earth rotation that you can see in certain ways, during the space shots, movements of everything in space that wouldn't be happening that way. It's to create drama, because the film is about creating drama and excitement and not about representing the science exactly. So we're just going to skip all those questions.
Yeah.
Phil, you're great.
Okay. But this one is interesting. He's asking if the process of draining Alice's emotional reactions was intentional to the nature of a 9-to-5 job. So when she's in the office working, they're conditioning her to not have emotional reactions to horrible things.
Right. But the whole thing is a metaphor for work. Because work
of course. We've all had that job, right?
Her whole life is about going through the tedium and repetition of work, which is why we show kind of all those days. And she has really, basically her job of calling people to inform them that their children have died was the best thing we could think of as the worst possible desk job. We were like, what is the worst thing you could do sitting at a desk? There are probably jobs that are worse in practice. But if you had to have like a desk office job, what's the worst possible thing you could have to do emotionally and sort of spiritually and everything? And so that's why we chose that. And so that all the sequences with her going to work and working are all definitely metaphorical about the experiences of work in our lives. Okay.
Here he is complaining about how uncool the cars are. We kind of had to, it's a very low budget movie, and we basically had to use the cars that we had access to. So that's our black car in the film, and that's my father's white van. And luckily, this very cool 80s car went by while we were filming at one point. Yeah. And we're like, yes, look at that
production value. It's also important because we wanted the car to be very generic looking, because we didn't want the time period to be very specific. So we didn't want anything that looked obviously from a specific era. So in a lot of ways, cars from the last like 20 or 25 years, especially, dark colored ones, kind of all have the same body and design. And bowls. they're not really interesting, which we chose kind of on purpose. And we wanted it to be black to kind of contrast with the white van and everything like that. Okay, so Earth rotation. We're skipping all this. Skipping all this, yeah. Check engine light. That's a good one. So our car perpetually does have the check engine light on, and that was visible in the film. We thought Alice, the character in the film, would have the check engine light.
I mean, she's kind of at the end of her rope and is getting evicted and has just been turned down for a role in a movie, and there's no way she has the money to go investigate some thing on her car, some alarm light.
She can't really deal with the check engine light, so that's
very familiar.
All right. So at one point, Phil's asking questions about continuity with her walking toward the camera on the street and all this kind of stuff. And what's really interesting, I won't read the whole question, but essentially we shot quite a lot in New York City and Brooklyn, especially walking around the streets in Brooklyn. But then secretly there is doubling for New York City in a town in Western New York. So some of the street stuff is in Western New York. They're in different places. So as she walks from her car to her house and all this stuff, she's actually in very different cities. And that was just practical issues for us.
Looked out because that first weekend that we shot, a lot of the exteriors and all of her walking around was kind of right in between. It's like actually right in when the movie is set, which is the week before December 31st. So it's actually when we started filming, was right in between Christmas and New Year's.
Yep.
So it was very dead everywhere. There's nobody else walking around. It was super cold. It was like less than 10 degrees most days. But I think that vibe and the desolation really translates in the film and adds a lot.
We wanted to shoot. We wanted to shoot in a place where there was nothing on the street. So that's why New York City was a little hard for some of the aspects of that, which is why we doubled some of New York City elsewhere. But that was the idea. Okay.
So he also spotted on the letter that she gets is a rejection for a movie part for the Spectre Island Massacre Part 2, which is just a joke. I mean, our first movie, 10, takes place on Spectre Island. So it's just like a little inside joke about...
It could have been called, the movie 10 is about sort of the Spectre Island Massacre, so we made a joke that Alice had tried out for the film Spectre Island Massacre 2. We wanted her to be a failed artist in New York, and so one of the aspects of that is like getting rejected from an acting
I don't
gig.
see the stationery comes from our company, which is called Launchover, and I think I signed it. So
there's a lot of small...
So it's just a little nod to our previous film.
Small references. Okay, is Alice the youngest of three sisters? That's, of course, a reference to Alice Pleasance Liddell, who is the namesake from Alice of that Lewis Carroll sort of was inspired to write Alice in Wonderland for. And in our movie, we do not address whether Alice has siblings, but my feeling is that she has no family.
I think she doesn't.
No.
Yeah, I mean, I think she doesn't have family.
So, okay. Why does so much happen at 8:04 a.m. or p.m.? That's a great question. Why, indeed. All the numbers in the film are chosen with significance. There are variations of some of my favorite numbers, which are 42, which is the
life,
answer to the question of life, the universe, and everything. And 108 and some other, and 404. And there are lots of other things that are numbers that are cultural references, religious references, and things like that. If we're going to put some kind of number that's visible in the film, we're always going to have it be chosen with some significance. So if you see any detail like that, there's always a reason why it was selected. In the case of 804, it's a doubling of 42 or 402.
So just another note as far as production goes. I mean, it's a very low budget movie, and we're working within a lot of confines and spaces that, we had to decorate very fast, and cities that we didn't have total control over. But at the same time, for me especially, I wanted a lot of emptiness. And so everything that is in a shot is purposely there. There's nothing where I didn't decorate that set or we didn't bring in these props. So as you're watching that, like, it's all for the movie. There's nothing there that wouldn't be, that isn't something on purpose.
Yeah, there weren't really, we try not to put accidents in frame. We try to keep the frame blank, basically, if we can. And so a lot of the office scenes, everything is shot very point of view with Alice looking right at the camera, and there are long shots where it's just sort of continuous. And somebody in another Q&A actually asked us about the time-lapsing, and so we sort of joked that we made Alex Mortis sit at the desk for 12 hours as the time lapse, but we did not, in fact, do that. We actually just made the clock go faster in post. But, things like that are the details that we sort of work through. Okay, the building that says Lowndes. Do you want to talk about that?
So we shot a chunk of this movie in my hometown, in Western New York. And that's one thing that maybe we didn't mean to end up in the frame after we just said all of that, is the name of this. It's a very cute little store. It's full of artists and selling, like a variety of artists sell there. Anyway, we really wanted to change it to say clowns.
And we may still in the final version, but
you know, when you get your DVDs, it may say
clowns
at some point, because it was definitely like, oh no, we need to fix this or get rid of it or do something.
Well, we thought about what we wanted to do with it.
But it's an independent artist community space, so
and that's the street
they
view.
don't mind, and that's the street.
That's the street view of it. So it's public space. So
yeah.
All right. So, okay, can you imagine a worldview that does not place preference on existence over non-existence? Because the film is about...
Let's back up and just say this is a question not from Phil. This is a question from Robot Andy Kaufman from space.
Robot Andy Kaufman from space. Can you imagine a worldview that does not place preference on existence over non-existence? Even nihilism begins with the assumption that we value existence and yearn to preserve it. Is there a non-rebellious way to embrace non-existence? It's a really interesting question. A lot of the film is actually about the contrast between existence and non-existence. And one of the inspirations for the approach that we took to the film was to include that aspect from this book, Alice in Wonderland. And there's a lot actually of kind of, people don't normally, it's not the thing that people most often associate with Alice in Wonderland, but there's quite a lot of content about absence, like the idea of unbirthdays being celebrated. There's a dialogue during the tea party scene where I believe the March Hare says, "Take some more tea," and Alice says, "I can't take more when I haven't had any yet." And then he says, "Well, you can hardly take less then if you haven't had any yet." So it's this idea that non-existence is really a thing that's just as valid or present as existence, and we thought that was a really fascinating idea, partly because we work so hard to preserve our lives and think about our lives as having value, and we don't really have a great understanding. I mean, this is sort of what nihilism and existentialism is about. We don't really have a great understanding of what it means to not be alive, or what it was like before we were born, you know, all these kind of ideas. So we thought it was a fun kind of theme to explore in the film, and to kind of think about that way. So I'm not sure there is a worldview that can really place value on non-existence or celebrate it quite, but I think it's something that we sort of strive to do in accepting our mortality. And so I think that's a lot what the movie's about.
Absolutely. Well, for me, one of the things I most enjoyed exploring was, you know, if it's up to you, you're the last person, like, are you gonna push it forward and keep trying? Like, or, you know, are you that important, or is humanity that important? Because we're so minuscule compared to the rest of the universe. So, like, how much does anything actually matter?
Yeah, well, it doesn't.
No. Crushing depression.
And that's sort of the idea in the film as well, is that Alice has a terrible existence. I mean, it's really empty.
All
and
the Alices have a terrible existence.
But our main character Alice has a terrible, pointless existence with repetition and boredom and everything like that. And so yet there's still this desire to continue to preserve life for no real reason other than the fact that it's just, you know, given the choice between preserving and not preserving, you're like, well, got to keep doing it. So they keep going through this cycle every time and keep resetting the cycle, despite the fact that there's no hope for stopping. I don't know if that's apparent in the movie. There's no hope for stopping the scientists
group has a hope.
But there is no hope. There's clearly no hope.
And they come across this Alice, and this Alice is behaving a little differently, and they get really excited that maybe this cycle will be different than the 80 or so
There's clearly no
cycles that
hope,
have already happened. There's clearly no hope. But the scientists have a little bit of hope.
I think the scientists just have hope that this Alice will survive.
Doing. Yeah.
Actually, I don't think it's even about resolving.
Well, she knows that she's done.
Yeah.
Pretty much at that point.
Because they're down to the last few people who have survived, and it's sort of a replacement and somebody who can take a new approach to existence. So, okay, are there any plans to recut Magnetic to feature more dinosaurs so that it can appeal to a larger audience?
It'll have to be a future film.
Probably not.
The dinosaurs.
Probably not.
We could do a film with dinosaurs eventually.
I don't think that one's happening.
No, not for Magnetic.
Okay, this is an inside joke from 10.
Okay, yeah.
In 10, a certain social media platform was the technology sought after, which is an inside joke. In actuality, without spoiling 10 for anybody who hasn't seen it, there's an important piece. There's a MacGuffin in it that's important. And we joked that it was basically the information about how to start Facebook, but that's not actually the reality. And so the question is, what is the technology in magnetic? And actually, we've talked a little bit about this, and I don't know if this will ever happen, but our dream is to make a movie called Daughters of Ra that is sort of a spin-off of Magnetic about the Ra cult in that. And one of the concepts in the Daughters of Ra treatment that we currently have kind of kicking around is that actually the information that's in 10 is what's used to create a technology that actually triggers the events in Magnetic, that triggers the world ending. So it all kind of ties together. Our goal is to kind of keep tying all these things together in interesting ways.
And if you watch 10 to the very, very end, past the credits, there's a little what do they call
Easter
it?
egg.
Zinger or something of magnetostatic systems. So
they're tied together. They exist in the same world.
Yeah, they're in the same universe.
Yeah, they exist in the same world. So, okay.
Rachel from New York asked, is it easier or more challenging to direct a film that stars only one person?
It's easier and more challenging. No.
Well, I think we kind of set out, after doing 10, which had 10 cast members and a location, we were like, let's boil it down. And I think in our minds it was going to be easier just to have one person to work with.
It was easier for scheduling.
It certainly was for scheduling. We did have to use a lot of body doubles to do a lot of the other Alices. Not to spoil anything, there's more than
You've
one
seen
Alice.
it.
So some of that was challenging, the compositing of shots.
There were some technological things that had to be done in terms of compositing and combining variations of Alice because Alex Mortis was playing all of the Alices.
Yeah.
So, but it wasn't too hard. We planned it pretty well, I think, and we didn't find it. I think
for
went wrong
Alex, I think for finding the voicings of the different characters was probably proved to be something to think about, at least. Like, how do these people talk? And these people are more run down. How do they talk? This one's a little manic or crazy. How do they talk? So there was a lot of that. And actually at one of the Q&As, somebody asked who did all the voices, and they were all Alex Morris. Even the big Daughters of Ra scene, the dream sequences, that was all Alex. So we had them come over, and we did it all the sound is in post. There was nothing captured live, which was kind of a choice we made to make shooting a little bit easier on us, to have like basically no crew. The crew we did have was amazing. We did have several people, but I mean, like
very small crew,
less than 5 for all the shoots.
We also worked very quickly. I mean, the film has quite a lot of locations, and we had to work very, very quickly. And many of the locations that we're in, we did not have the ability to isolate for sound. There was just no way we would have been able to do it. The office scenes, for example, there was a drummer playing drums next door. So
it was the first day they were like, we're gonna get sound this day. It was the office scenes. She's gonna be talking a lot. And a drummer at 9 a.m. on a Sunday just starts doing his rudiments. It's horrible.
Paradiddles.
It's paradiddles, yeah.
So
we were, at that moment, we're like, no more sound.
Yeah.
It's all going to be in post. And Alex, I think we did like 5 days with Alex, and they did an amazing job. So
yeah, we did quite a lot of actually ADR work, even for the little dialogue that there was in there. And then we did all the sound design. Sophia did a lot of the putting on the clothes and changing things and pressing record on tapes and play on tapes and
answering phones.
Yeah, so we recreated a lot of the actual physical activities in the movie in our sound studio at home. So
and then, of course, as far as the music goes, like we had to make very conscious decisions of when the activities were going to interact with the music, because we wanted the music to be what you're focusing on.
Right.
But there are instances where car doors slam or they start. Different things happen in the music. The music interacts with Alice. Alice is stopping and starting the cassette tapes. And so we wanted the music to be its own character in the film.
And the sound design very much we wanted the sound design to very much be associated with the activities of the music in the film. So pressing stop and play on the tape deck and all those kinds of things. So we really wanted to tie that in. So there are those abrupt stops as doors close or as tapes are pressed and things like that. Okay.
Anonymous.
Is the whole world made up of just Alice's? And this is an interesting one. We talked quite a lot about this as we developed the movie. And our goal with the way we've designed it is that you don't know the answer to this. But we sort of think, the way we think of it is that there's a whole world of people out there. And we only experience the isolation of this Alice character and the variations of that character. And so it's not necessarily that if you went everywhere in the world, they'd all be Alice's, but rather that this character is so isolated from everyone else that we only experience her life in this film.
What year is the movie set? So we kind of thought about this a lot, and it's anachronistic. There's a lot of 80s technology, VHS tapes and cassette tapes. So we're going for very retro, but at the same time, I mean, there's no cell phones, there's no newer computers. At the same time, we feel like it's not really stuck in a particular year or decade.
The idea was actually that every time she goes back a week in the transport, it goes to kind of an alternate universe. So we travel back in time a week, but it's actually a parallel universe that's sort of nearby. So it's very similar to the present one. But when you go through many, many cycles of traveling across to skipping to the next parallel universe over, there are variations. So we see technologies change. We see different mixes of technologies. So it's not set in any particular year. And that was the idea, to keep it so it didn't have any kind of feel. But we wanted a very analog, tangible kind of feel to it. And trying to keep it kind of consistent with that, the cassette tapes and the VHS and all that. And there was some more, originally in the script, there was more explanation about how during the time travel, only certain types of media could survive, so that she had to use those kind of media. But we took all that out because we were like, that's not, you'll get the feel even without that explanation. We don't need to explain the science of it. So that's kind of the goal of it. Okay, so our last question is from Phil, and he says, "Are you tired of saying so Phil asked this question yet?" And the answer is no.
Never.
No, we're not tired. So thanks for tuning in to our Q&A and listening to us kind of babble about the movie. We're very excited about all the festivals Magnetic has played at. And
it's hopefully a whole bunch more. There's a whole bunch this month. So if you're all over the country, check out the website magnetic.com.
Magneticthemovie.com.
Oh, yeah, yep. Magneticthemovie.com. And then you click the little screenings button, you'll see where we're going. But
and it'll be out eventually. Probably, you'll get copies if you're a backer who is going to receive a copy. You'll get one pretty soon. Mm-hmm. And then for everybody else, we hope to actually release the movie with hopefully a distributor by sometime early next year. So thanks again. Thanks for supporting us, and we really couldn't have made this movie without you. So thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.